Stay away from my car. You people are always stealing.
It was high noon in Houston, Texas, under a blazing sun. The kind of heat that presses down on you, heavy and suffocating, making the air shimmer above the asphalt. My name is Camille Johnson. I'm a 31-year-old single mother, and every bone in my body ached as I dragged my tired feet out of the cool, air-conditioned sanctuary of an office building and back into that furnace. I'd just finished my third job of the day. A cleaner in the early morning, when the city was still asleep and the sky was a soft, bruised purple. A kitchen hand at noon. Amidst the clatter of pans and the frantic ballet of a lunch rush. And a caregiver for the elderly in the afternoon, a job that was as emotionally taxing as it was physically demanding. All of it. Every drop of sweat, every strained muscle, was for my daughter, Imani. To raise my bright, beautiful 12-year-old girl and to make the payments on the car I just managed to buy. My silver sedan. My symbol of freedom. My lifeline. It had come to me through a low-income assistance program, a miracle of paperwork and patience. I walked toward the parking lot of a shopping center on the south side of the city. It was a chaotic symphony of life, a crowded, noisy mix of shoppers on a mission and roaring engines fighting for dominance. I spotted her, my silver sedan, gleaming under the oppressive sun. My heart did a little flutter, the way it always did. She wasn't just a machine of metal and plastic to me, she was a promise. A promise of no more missed parent-teacher conferences, no more 3 bus rides to the grocery store. No more depending on the kindness of others for a ride to the doctor. Finally done, I breathed, the words a silent prayer of gratitude. Imani must be waiting for me at home. I could already picture her, probably curled up on the sofa with a book, her brow furrowed in concentration. The thought of her smile was the fuel that kept me going. I fumbled inside my worn-out handbag for the key, my fingers brushing against the crumpled receipts and stray tissues that mapped out my hectic life. But just as my fingers closed around the cool metal, just as I held the key, ready to unlock the door to my hard-won independence, a shrill scream cut through the parking lot. Sharp and jagged as broken glass. "Don't you touch my car, you thief!" I jumped, my heart leaping into my throat. I spun around, my body tensing. 1,000 frantic thoughts crashing through my mind. A white woman in her 50s. Dressed in expensive clothes that seemed to repel the grime of the city and sparkling with jewelry that caught the sun like shards of ice, was storming toward me. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated hostility. I'm sorry, this is my car, I stammered, my voice a pathetic tremble. The shock of the accusation had stolen my breath, leaving me dizzy and disoriented. The white woman, I would later learn her name was Cheryl Blake, let out a harsh, mocking laugh that grated on my nerves. "Your car," she sneered, her eyes raking over me with undisguised contempt. "A black woman dressed like she just crawled out of a dumpster drives a car like this? You think I'm stupid?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. Before I could even process the venom in her tone. Before I could form a coherent thought, she snatched the handbag from my grasp. The worn leather strap, my companion through countless long days, was ripped from my shoulder. She threw it on the hot, gritty asphalt, its contents spilling out in a pathetic display of my life's humble necessities. Then, she brought her hand back, her face contorted in a snarl, and slapped me squarely across the face. Crack. The sound was like a hammer blow, sharp and brutal, echoing in the sudden, ringing silence of my own head. I stumbled backward, my hand flying to my cheek, which was already burning, a fiery, throbbing testament to her violence. My head spun. The world tilted on its axis. I couldn't understand what was happening. Why? Why would a complete stranger assault me like this? What had I done to deserve this? "I've called the police." Cheryl continued to scream, her voice a weapon she wielded with practiced ease. "You scam artist. You'd better get on your knees and apologize before you end up in handcuffs." A crowd began to gather, drawn by the spectacle like moths to a flame. Phones were raised, their dark, unblinking eyes recording my humiliation. But no one helped me. Not a single person stepped forward. They all just stood and stared, their faces a mixture of curiosity and morbid fascination. As if I were the one at fault, the aggressor, the villain in this sudden, brutal street theater. Shaking, my body trembling with a cocktail of fear and adrenaline, I bent down to pick up my bag. My things were scattered on the ground, a half-eaten granola bar, a tube of chapstick, my wallet. My hands trembled violently as I fumbled inside for my wallet, my fingers clumsy and uncooperative. I pulled out the vehicle registration, the crisp paper a stark contrast to my shaking hands. "I just got this car through a low-income assistance loan program. The Road to Independence program," I said, my voice pleading, desperate for someone, anyone, to believe me. "Here are my papers, please, just look." Cheryl burst out laughing again, a sound that was even uglier than her scream. Her voice dripped with a contempt so profound it felt like acid on my skin. "Oh, right. Fake papers," she scoffed. snatching the registration from my hand and barely glancing at it before crumpling it in her fist. You think anyone believes someone like you can afford to drive a car legally? In this country. Nice cars aren't for freeloaders like you. The insults, each one carefully chosen, cut into my heart like knives. Freeloader. I, who worked 3 jobs, who hadn't had a full night's sleep in years. I had worked tirelessly, sacrificed everything, time with my daughter, my own health, my sanity, to get this car the right way. But now, in this parking lot, under the harsh glare of the Texas sun and the even harsher glare of a stranger's prejudice, I was being treated like a thief. All because of the color of my skin. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, a sound that should have brought relief but instead filled me with a fresh wave of terror. A patrol car pulled up, its lights flashing, painting the scene in frantic strokes of red and blue. 2 officers got out. The white officer, his face a grim, unreadable mask, placed his hand on his gun as he approached me. His gaze as cold and hard as steel. Stay still. Hands on the car. You're under suspicion of theft and assault. The words were a death sentence. My world, already teetering on the brink, collapsed. I was the one who was slapped, I said, my voice cracking, turning my head to show him my swollen, burning cheek. The panic was a wild animal clawing its way up my throat. I didn't do anything. This is my car, I have all the paperwork. But my voice was lost in the void. A whisper against a hurricane of prejudice. No one listened. No one cared about the truth. And I knew, in that moment, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that in the eyes of everyone around me, I had already been condemned. All because of my skin. While I stood trembling by my car, my hands forced in the air as if I were a common criminal, Cheryl Blake put on a performance for the crowd of recording phones. She sobbed, great, heaving, theatrical sobs. Feigning a terror that was a grotesque mockery of the real fear that was coursing through my veins. I had just finished shopping, she wailed, dabbing at her dry eyes with a manicured hand. And I saw her trying to break into my car. When I confronted her, she tried to attack me. I'm lucky I got away. Officer Martinez, who was Hispanic, took the crumpled registration from her. He smoothed it out and then, with a quiet professionalism that was a stark contrast to his partner's overt hostility, he began the methodical process of checking the VIN and the license plate. He looked at the registration, at the insurance card I'd managed to retrieve, and then at me. His expression was neutral, but for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of something other than condemnation in someone's eyes. Maybe it was just my desperation, but I thought I saw a glimmer of understanding. The truth, after all, was as clear as day. Written in the cold, hard facts of the DMV database. The car belonged to Camille Johnson, age 31, a single mother. The legal owner, who had purchased the vehicle through the Road to Independence program for low-income individuals. A program designed to help people exactly like me. But Cheryl wouldn't stop. The truth was an inconvenience she refused to acknowledge. That's impossible, she shrieked, her voice rising to a fever pitch. She forged the documents. She must have stolen the key from my purse. She's a professional con artist. I just know it. I tried to remain calm, to hold on to the last shred of my dignity, though my cheek was still swollen and throbbing, a constant, painful reminder of her assault. I pulled out more documents, my hands still shaking but my resolve hardening. This is everything I have, I said, my voice steadier now, fueled by a righteous anger that was beginning to burn through the fear. Insurance, driver's license, the purchase contract. I'm not a thief. I'm just a mother who works 3 jobs a day to afford this car. My voice grew quieter then, the anger giving way to a bone-deep weariness. I'm just a mother. Like a drowning person pleading for a lifeline. Just then, as the white officer seemed to be siding with Cheryl, ready to slap the cuffs on me, a young Latina woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was holding her phone up, not like a weapon, but like a shield. A shield for the truth. Excuse me, I recorded it from the start, she said, her voice clear and strong. She pointed a steady finger at Cheryl. She slapped her. This woman did nothing wrong. I saw her snatch the purse and hit her. The young woman, I would later learn her name was Maria Gonzalez, held out her phone. The screen, bright and clear in the harsh sunlight, showed the entire incident. It was all there, and undeniable. High-definition reality, me, fumbling for my keys, Cheryl, storming towards me, her face a mask of rage, Cheryl, snatching my purse, throwing it to the ground, and then the slap. Brutal and unprovoked. The video played on, a silent movie of my assault, and with each frame, the lies that Cheryl had so carefully constructed crumbled into dust. The crowd, which had been a sea of hostile, accusing faces, began to murmur. The tide was turning. The truth, for the first time that day, had a voice. And it was speaking through the courage of a stranger. A strange, profound silence fell over the chaotic parking lot as Officer Martinez took Maria's phone. The only sounds were the distant hum of traffic and the frantic, shallow breaths of Cheryl Blake. I watched, my own breath caught in my chest, as the officer's dark eyes focused on the small screen. His partner, the white officer who had looked at me with such cold suspicion, leaned in. His expression shifting from stern authority to grudging curiosity. The video began. I could see myself, looking tired but content, walking toward my car. I saw my hand, fumbling in my purse for the key. Then, the audio kicked in, a distorted, tinny version of Cheryl's shriek. On the screen, her figure stormed into the frame. A whirlwind of expensive fabric and pure malice. I flinched, my body remembering the assault even as my eyes watched it unfold. The whole ugly scene played out. Her sneering words, though muffled by the parking lot noise, were clear enough. Then came the snatching of my purse, its contents spilling across the asphalt like a sad confession. And then, the slap. The phone's microphone had picked up the sound with sickening clarity. A sharp, brutal crack that made the white officer physically recoil, his eyes widening in shock. He looked from the phone to my face, to the red, swollen mark that was the undeniable proof of the video's authenticity. In his eyes, for the first time, I saw not condemnation, but a flicker of shame. The video ended. Officer Martinez looked up, his face an impassive mask, but his eyes were hard as granite. He handed the phone back to Maria with a quiet, "Thank you, ma'am." He then turned his gaze upon Cheryl Blake, and the full, formidable weight of the law seemed to settle on her shoulders. Cheryl, who had been momentarily stunned into silence, erupted. "It's a fake," she screeched, her voice cracking with hysteria. "That's not real. It's been doctored. They're in it together, can't you see? She probably paid this girl to make that video. It's a setup. A scam." But her words, which had been so powerful just moments before, now sounded hollow and pathetic. The performance was over. The curtain had been ripped away, revealing the ugly, bitter woman underneath. The white officer, his voice now devoid of its earlier hostility and laced with a new, sharp edge, took a step toward Cheryl. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down." "Don't you tell me to calm down," she shrieked, pointing a trembling, diamond-clad finger at me. "She's the criminal. Arrest her." "No, ma'am," Officer Martinez said, his voice dangerously quiet. "We have eyewitness testimony and video evidence of you assaulting this woman. We have proof that you knowingly filed a false police report. You are the one who is going to be arrested." The color drained from Cheryl's face. The mask of righteous indignation shattered, replaced by the slack-jawed terror of a cornered animal. For the first time, she looked her age, a frightened, pathetic woman stripped of her privilege and power. "No," she whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. "No, you can't. Do you know who my husband is? I will have your jobs. I will sue this entire department." But the threats were empty, meaningless. The white officer had already taken out his handcuffs. The sound of the metal clicking open was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of justice. "Cheryl Blake," the officer said, his voice formal and firm. "You are under arrest for assault and filing a false police report. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." He took her arm, and she tried to snatch it away, but his grip was like iron. As he cuffed her hands behind her back, the beautiful, expensive bracelets she wore clinked against the cold steel of the handcuffs. The irony was so thick I could almost taste it. She, who had threatened me with handcuffs, was now the one in chains. She began to sob then, not the fake, theatrical sobs from before, but the ugly, desperate cries of a woman who had lost everything. Her carefully constructed world of wealth and privilege had crumbled around her in a dirty parking lot. All because she couldn't stand the sight of a black woman driving a decent car. As they led her, stumbling and weeping, to the patrol car, the crowd, which had been watching with rapt attention, began to disperse. There were no apologies, no words of support. Just the quiet, shuffling sound of feet as they melted back into the anonymity of the shopping center. Their faces etched with a shame they would likely forget by dinner time. They had been willing participants in my humiliation, and now that the show was over, they simply walked away. The parking lot was suddenly quiet. It was just me, Maria, and the two officers. A wave of exhaustion so profound it was almost dizzying washed over me. The adrenaline that had been keeping me upright drained away, leaving my legs feeling like jelly. I leaned against my car, the car that had been the source of all this pain, and finally let the tears come. They weren't tears of fear or humiliation anymore. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of a pain so deep it had no words. Officer Martinez approached me, his demeanor gentle. "Ma'am, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" I shook my head, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. "No, I just want to go home." The white officer, who had been standing awkwardly to the side, cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he began, his eyes fixed on a spot just over my shoulder. I apologize for the initial misunderstanding. It wasn't much, but it was an acknowledgement. A small crack in the wall of prejudice I had come up against. I just nodded, too tired to say anything more. Officer Martinez took my statement, his pen scratching against his notepad as I recounted the events in a flat, monotone voice. When he was done, he handed me a card with a case number on it. "A detective from the assault division will be in touch. And ma'am, for what it's worth, I'm sorry you had to go through this." I nodded again, my throat too tight to speak. As the officers got back in their car, I turned to the young woman who had saved me. "Maria. My angel in a Houston parking lot. I don't know how to thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. She just smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached her kind eyes. "You don't have to thank me. I just did what was right." I stepped forward and hugged her, a fierce, desperate hug. I was clinging to her, a stranger who had shown me more compassion than anyone in that entire crowd. She was my proof that in a world full of Cheryl Blakes, there were also Mariahs. "You are so strong," she said, her voice soft. We exchanged phone numbers, promising to stay in touch. A bond forged in the fires of a shared, ugly moment. Then, she was gone. And I was alone with my car. My beautiful, silver car. I opened the door, the familiar click of the lock sounding different now, heavier. I sank into the driver's seat. The seat I had worked so hard for, and just sat there for a long time, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. The drive home was a blur. The city passed by my windows, but I didn't see it. I was replaying the events in my head, over and over. The scream. The slap. The faces in the crowd. The coldness in the officer's eyes. The what-ifs were a terrifying chorus in my mind. What if Maria hadn't been there? What if she hadn't recorded it? Would I be in a jail cell right now? Would Imani be alone, wondering where her mother was? The thought of my daughter was a physical pain in my chest. I had to get home to her. I pressed my foot on the accelerator, my car, my symbol of independence, carrying me away from the scene of my trauma and toward the only sanctuary I had ever known. When I opened the door to our small apartment, she was there, just as I had pictured. Curled up on the sofa with a book. She looked up, her bright, intelligent eyes full of concern. "Mom? What happened? Your face." She rushed to me, her small hands gently touching my swollen cheek. And in the safety of my own home, in the loving arms of my daughter, I finally broke down completely. I told her everything, simplifying the ugliness of it, trying to shield her from the full weight of the hatred I had experienced. I told her about the mean woman, but I also told her about the kind woman, Maria, who had helped me. I needed her to know that for every bit of darkness in the world, there is also light. That night, as Imani slept beside me, her small body a warm, comforting presence in the dark, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The next day, I got a call from a detective, assuring me that they were pursuing the charges against Cheryl Blake to the fullest extent of the law, including a possible hate crime enhancement. Later, a text from Maria lit up my phone. "Just checking on you. You're a warrior." I got up and walked to the window, looking down at the street where my silver sedan was parked under a streetlight, a quiet, steadfast promise in the dark. It was more than just a car now. It was a reminder. A reminder of the ugliness I had faced, but also of the strength I had found. A reminder that I was a survivor. A mother. And that for my daughter, for myself, I would never, ever stop fighting. The days that followed passed in a hazy blur of exhaustion and a strange, persistent sense of unreality. By day, I fell back into my rhythm, the cleaning, the cooking, the caregiving, because bills don't wait for trauma, and Imani needed to eat. My body moved on autopilot, but my mind was elsewhere, constantly replaying the scene in the parking lot. The swelling in my cheek had subsided, but a faint, ghostly bruise remained, a yellowish-green shadow I covered with a thin layer of foundation before work. I didn't want the questions. I didn't want the pity. I just wanted to be invisible. But the world had other plans. About 3 days after the assault, I was woken not by my alarm clock, but by the furious buzzing of my phone on the nightstand. It was vibrating incessantly, like an angry, trapped bee. With a groan, I reached for it, squinting at the bright screen. Dozens of texts. Notifications from local news outlets. Hundreds of friend requests and DMs from strangers on social media. My heart began to pound. What was happening? I clicked on one of the news links. And there it was. Cheryl Blake's enraged face, frozen in a screenshot from Maria's video. Next to it, my own tear-streaked face. The headline hit me like a punch. Woman assaulted in racially charged parking lot dispute, viral video shows. Viral video. A wave of nausea washed over me. Maria had sent the video to the police. But someone in that crowd, must have posted their own footage online. And it had spread like wildfire. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Maria. I snatched it up. Camille? Did you see? Her voice was fraught with worry. I just saw, I whispered, feeling the walls closing in. Maria, I didn't want this. I know. I'm so sorry, Camille. It's out of control now. There's good and bad out there. Just be careful. Bad? I asked, my voice trembling. People defending her. Calling you a scammer, saying you deserved it. Don't read the comments. For the love of God, do not read the comments. But her advice came too late. A morbid curiosity had taken hold. After I hung up, I made the mistake of looking beneath an article. In the cesspool of the comments section, Maria's words proved true. For every message of support, there was a deep vein of hatred. She must have done something to provoke her. Look at how she's dressed. Clearly looking for a handout. Here we go again, another person playing the race card for a payday. Each comment was a fresh slap, a new violation. They didn't know me. They didn't know about my 3 jobs, my love for my daughter, the sleepless nights and aching muscles. They saw a crying black face and filled in the blanks with their own ugly prejudices. I closed the phone, my hand shaking. I had felt exposed in that parking lot, judged by a small crowd. Now it felt like the entire world was staring. And yet, in the middle of that sewage, there were sparks of light. Someone had started a GoFundMe page for me titled Justice for Camille Johnson. Donations were already pouring in, $5, $20, $100 from strangers across the country. And with them, messages. Your strength is an inspiration. Don't let them get you down. As a single mom, I know the struggle. Here's a little something to help. Thank you for being brave. Thank you, Maria, for not being a bystander. I began to cry. But these were complicated tears. I was grateful for the kindness, but ashamed to need it. I had never wanted charity. I had only ever wanted peace. A few days later, another call came. One that changed everything again. It was from the Harris County District Attorney's Office. Ms. Johnson, a professional, energetic voice said, "My name is Anya Sharma. I'm the Assistant District Attorney assigned to your case. We'd like you to come in to discuss the next steps." The meeting took place in a stately government building that made me feel small and out of place. Anya Sharma was a sharp, brilliant young woman of Indian descent with intelligent eyes and a firm handshake. She didn't waste time. "Ms. Blake has retained a very expensive legal team," she began, sitting across from me in her tidy office. "They are going to try to make this your fault. They will dig into your past, your finances, everything. They will paint a picture of you as an opportunist looking for a payday. I need you to be prepared for that." I nodded, my throat dry. "We are pursuing a Class A misdemeanor assault charge, which carries up to a year in jail, and a charge of filing a false police report," she continued. Given the language she used, we are also looking at a hate crime enhancement. But that is very difficult to prove. Their strategy will be to discredit you. Our strategy is to present the truth, plain and simple. You were the victim. She was the aggressor. And we have the video to prove it. She looked at me, her gaze steady. "But I need to know, Camille. Are you up for this fight? It won't be easy. They will make you feel like you're the one on trial." I thought of Imani. I thought of her growing up in a world with people like Cheryl Blake in it. If I backed down now, what would I be teaching her? That when someone bullies you, hurts you, you just take it? "I'm ready," I said, and my voice was stronger than I felt. It was a good thing, because my next test was waiting for me at home. I picked Imani up from school. And I knew instantly something was wrong. She was uncharacteristically quiet on the ride home. When we got into the apartment, she threw her backpack on the floor and turned to face me, her big eyes glistening with unshed tears. "A kid in my class saw it," she said, her voice wobbling. "He saw the video. He asked me if my mom was the lady crying on TV. Mom, why are people so mean?" My heart broke into a million pieces. This was my worst fear realized. The ugliness of the world had breached her sanctuary, had stained her innocence. I knelt in front of her, taking her hands in mine. "Oh, Imani, baby. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault," she said, the tears finally spilling over. "I hate that lady. I hate what she did to you." "I know," I said softly. "But listen to me. There is a lot of meanness in the world. But there are good people, too. Like Maria, who helped me. And like all the people sending me nice messages. The important thing isn't that meanness exists, it's what we do about it. We don't back down. We stand up, even when we're scared. We show them that kindness and truth are stronger than hate. Do you understand? Imani nodded, rubbing her eyes. Are you scared? All the time, I admitted. But I'm not going to let the fear win. And I have you on my side. Which makes me the strongest person in the world. She threw her arms around my neck, and I held her tight. Breathing in the scent of her hair and trying to absorb the strength of her unconditional love. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for the world I wanted her to live in. Knowing I couldn't do it alone, I took a step I never thought I would. The Victim Services Unit at the DA's office had given me a list of therapists specializing in trauma. I made the call. Sitting in the office of a kind woman named Dr. Albright, I found myself telling the story again. But this time, it was different. I wasn't just recounting the events. I was talking about how they felt. The humiliation. The way Cheryl Blake's words confirmed a deep-seated fear that maybe I wasn't worthy. That no matter how hard I worked, some people would only ever see my skin color and a poor woman. I talked about the rage I felt, a simmering, righteous fury at the injustice of it all. That anger is valid, Camille, Dr. Albright said. It's a signal. It's telling you a boundary has been violated. The question isn't how to extinguish it, but how to use it. Use it. The idea stayed with me. A week later, Anya Sharma called. Her voice was tight. Blake's lawyers have been in touch, she said. They're making an offer. What kind of offer? I asked, my heart hammering. She'll plead guilty to a Class C misdemeanor assault, the equivalent of a traffic ticket. No jail time. She'll attend anger management classes and pay a fine. In exchange, she wants the record sealed, and she wants you to sign an NDA, basically agreeing to never speak about this again. Silence hung on the line. They're trying to buy your silence, Camille. Anya said gently. If you take this, it's all over. No trial. You can take the GoFundMe money and move on with your life. No one would blame you for choosing that path. I looked out my apartment window. Down on the street, parked under a streetlight, was my silver sedan. My symbol of independence. My symbol of struggle. Cheryl Blake wanted to erase that story. To bury it under money and legal paperwork. She wanted to act like it never happened. I thought of Dr. Albright's words, use your anger. I thought of Imani asking me, are you scared? No. I said into the phone, and I had never been more certain of anything in my life. No, Ms. Johnson? Anya repeated, a hint of surprise in her voice. No, I said again. And I felt a surge of power course through my veins. I don't accept the offer. Tell her lawyers I'll see them in court. There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end of the line. And in that quiet moment, I felt the world shift. The decision, once uttered, settled in my bones not as a burden, but as a ballast. For the first time since I'd seen Cheryl Blake's face, I felt anchored. Okay, Anya Sharma said finally, and her voice was different now. The professional gentleness was replaced by a tone of sharp, focused respect. Okay, Camille. Then we fight. And so began the long, grueling road to trial. My life, already a masterclass in juggling, became an even more complex circus act. There were long meetings with Anya, where we'd go over every single second of the incident, every word I could remember. She needed to know everything, not just to build our case, a formidable fortress of truth, but to anticipate the attacks from the other side. They will file motions to get the GoFundMe details, she warned me during one session, her office overlooking the sprawling Houston cityscape. They'll argue it proves motive. That you're profiting from this. I want you to transfer that money into a separate savings account and not touch a dime of it. We will be transparent about it. We will own it before they can twist it. The GoFundMe had grown to an amount that made me dizzy to look at. It was enough to pay my rent for a year, to buy Imani a new laptop for school, to fix the rattling sound in my car's engine. It was a safety net I had never dreamed of, and the thought that it could be used as a weapon against me made me feel sick. But I did as Anya said. Walling off the kindness of strangers, keeping my life as Spartan as it had been before. I would not give them any ammunition. The next major hurdle was the deposition. This will be the hardest part, besides the trial itself, Anya explained. You'll be in a conference room with their lead attorney, a man named Marcus Thorne. He's known for being a shark. He will question you under oath for hours. His entire goal is to trip you up, to make you angry, to make you seem like an unreliable witness. I will be there, and I will object if he crosses a line. But for the most part, you will have to answer his questions. The night before the deposition, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. In my therapy session with Dr. Albright that week, we had practiced. She had played the part of the aggressive lawyer. So, Ms. Johnson, you work 3 jobs? Isn't it true you were desperate for money? I work hard to provide for my daughter, I practiced saying, my voice even, my hands clasped in my lap to keep them from shaking. And this incident? It's been quite a windfall for you, hasn't it? The donations, the media attention. This incident was the most humiliating experience of my life. There is no amount of money that would make it worth it. Dr. Albright had given me tools. To breathe. To focus on a spot on the wall when I felt my anger rising. To answer only the question that was asked. To be comfortable with silence. Don't let him rush you, she'd said. The silence is your space. Own it. The deposition was held at a gleaming, impersonal downtown law firm. The air was thick with the scent of expensive leather and ambition. I walked in wearing my best black slacks and a simple blouse. Feeling like a sparrow in a flock of eagles. Anya was there, a calm, reassuring presence in her sharp suit. And then I saw him. Marcus Thorne. He was older. With silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his cold, calculating eyes. He was the picture of polite, corporate power. Ms. Johnson, he said, extending a hand. Thank you for coming. His handshake was firm and dry. We sat across from each other at a long, polished mahogany table, a court reporter at the end, her fingers poised over her machine. The interrogation began. Just as Anya and Dr. Albright had predicted. He started with my finances. For over an hour, he picked apart my life, my pay stubs, my rent, my car payments. He wasn't overtly rude, he was worse. His tone was one of feigned sympathy, designed to make me look pathetic and desperate. 3 jobs, Ms. Johnson. That must be incredibly stressful. It sounds like you were under immense financial and emotional pressure even before this unfortunate incident. I took a breath. I focused on the grain of the wood in the table. I do what I have to do for my daughter, I said, my voice steady. He moved on to my personal life, my past relationships, my childhood. Each question was a subtle probe. Searching for a crack in my composure, a weakness he could exploit. Anya objected several times, her voice a sharp counterpoint to his smooth baritone. Relevance, Mr. Thorne, she would snap. Counsel is harassing the witness. Then, he moved to the day of the assault. So you were tired, he said, leaning forward. You'd worked a long day. Would you say you were on edge? I would say I was looking forward to going home, I replied. And when Miss Blake, an older woman, a pillar of her community, approached you, concerned about her vehicle, you became belligerent. Isn't that right? The lie was so blatant, so audacious, it almost took my breath away. This was their narrative. I was the aggressor. She was the victim. No, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. That is not right. Isn't it true that you yelled at her first? That you swore at her? And that she only raised her hand to protect herself when you lunged at her? My blood ran cold, then hot. The anger Dr. Albright had told me to use was bubbling in my chest, a molten fury. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to fly across the table and show him what real aggression looked like. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye. I let the silence stretch, filling the space. I took a slow, deep breath. No, I said, my voice clear and devoid of emotion. Your client screamed at me. Called me a thief. She threw my purse on the ground. And then she slapped me across the face. That is what happened. I held his gaze, refusing to back down. For a moment, just a moment. The polite mask slipped, and I saw a flicker of frustration in his eyes. I hadn't taken the bait. I hadn't crumbled. The deposition ended a few hours later. I felt like I had run a marathon. Every nerve was frayed, every muscle tense. As Anya and I gathered our things, the door opened. Marcus Thorne's assistant showed in their next appointment. It was Cheryl Blake. She stopped short when she saw me. It was the first time we had been in the same room since that day. She looked different without the mask of rage, smaller, older. Her eyes, which had been so full of hate, now darted away, unable to meet mine. She wouldn't look at me. In that brief, silent moment, I felt a shift in the universe. In the parking lot, she had all the power. Here, in the cold light of legal consequence, she couldn't even hold my gaze. I didn't glare. I didn't say a word. I simply looked at her, my expression neutral. And then I turned and walked out of the room, Anya at my side. I had survived. That evening, I was exhausted but not broken. I felt a new kind of strength. A resilience forged in the fire of that conference room. I had faced the shark and hadn't been eaten. Later, after putting Imani to bed, I sat in my quiet living room. The trial was still months away, a huge mountain I still had to climb. But for the first time, I knew, deep in my soul, that I could do it. I had found my footing on the path. And I would not be moved. I would walk all the way to the summit, no matter how steep the climb, and I would make them listen to the truth. Of course. The story was not finished. The real fight had just begun. Here is the final chapter of Camille's journey. The months leading up to the trial were a test of endurance. My life became a calendar of legal prep. Therapy sessions with Dr. Albright, and long nights trying to quiet the gnawing anxiety so I could be the mother Imani needed. Cheryl Blake's legal team tried to bleed me dry through delays. They filed motion after motion, hoping they could exhaust me, that I would run out of money, time, and spirit and simply give up. They didn't succeed. The strength I had found in that deposition room had become a steady fire within me. And I was not alone. Maria had become a true friend, a sister. Always there with a cup of coffee and a pep talk on the hardest days. Anya Sharma was a warrior, shielding me from their worst tactics. And Imani, my sweet girl, was my reason. Every morning, she would hug me and say, "You've got this, Mom," and in those words, I found all the strength I needed. Finally, the day came. The courtroom was an intimidating place of marble and dark oak, designed to make the ordinary person feel small. As I sat with Anya at the prosecution's table, I felt the weight of 100 pairs of eyes on me. I could feel Cheryl Blake's stare from across the room, but I didn't look at her. I focused instead on the jury, the ordinary men and women who would decide the truth. The trial unfolded just as Anya had predicted. Marcus Thorne's opening statement painted a picture of an aggressive, unstable black woman who had terrorized a respectable, elderly citizen. Anya's opening was simple, direct, and powerful. She told the story of a hard-working single mother who was viciously and senselessly assaulted. Maria was a brilliant witness. She recounted what she saw with calm clarity, unflinching under Thorne's blistering cross-examination. But the pivotal moment came when Anya said, "The prosecution calls its first exhibit to the screen." A hush fell over the courtroom as the large monitor descended. And then, the video played. The shrill, ugly sound of Cheryl Blake's scream echoed in the solemn space. The courtroom watched her snatch my purse. The courtroom watched her mock me. And then, the courtroom heard it. Crack. The sharp, sickening sound of the slap was electric. I saw several jurors physically flinch. A woman in the front row brought her hand to her mouth. The video was not a story. It was an undeniable fact. Then, it was my turn. My legs trembled as I walked to the witness stand, but I kept my head high. Anya guided me through my story. I talked about my 3 jobs, about Imani, about what my car meant to me. Then came Thorne. He came at me with all the venom he could muster. He hammered me about the GoFundMe, about my past, trying to paint me as the villain. "Ms. Johnson, you want this jury to believe that you aren't thrilled about this attention? That you haven't benefited financially from this?" I looked him squarely in the eye. "Mr. Thorne, would you be willing to be slapped in the face in front of a crowd, called a thief, and humiliated worldwide in exchange for a sum of money? Because I would not. There is no amount of money on earth that could erase that humiliation." I kept my composure. I leaned on the tools Dr. Albright had given me. I answered truthfully. I did not give him the rage he was trying to provoke. The final witness was Cheryl Blake. She took the stand looking like a martyr in an expensive Chanel suit and wept. She told a story of fear. Of how she felt threatened, of how she only reacted to protect herself. Then Anya rose to cross-examine. She was surgical. "Ms. Blake, you say you were afraid. Can you point to the moment in the video where Ms. Johnson acts in a threatening manner?" "Well, the way she was standing there," Cheryl stammered. "She was very defiant." Defiant? Or simply trying to unlock her own car? Anya countered. She played the video again. "Ms. Blake, is that the sound of you defending yourself?" Anya pressed her, not with emotion, but with cold, irrefutable logic. And under that pressure, Cheryl Blake shattered. Her calm veneer cracked, revealing the raw arrogance and hatred beneath. People like her shouldn't be driving cars like that. She finally spat out in a burst of fury. "They don't know their place." A gasp went through the courtroom. Even her own lawyer flinched. She had told the truth on herself. Anya's closing argument was magnificent. "This is not just about an assault," she told the jury. "This is about dignity. About the right of a woman, any woman, to go about her day without being attacked and humiliated because of what she looks like, or the color of her skin, or the car she drives. The truth is not in Ms. Blake's crocodile tears. The truth is on that video. The truth is on the bruised face of Camille Johnson." Then the jury left to deliberate. The wait was torture. I held hands with Maria and Imani, who had been allowed to miss school to be with me. After 2 hours, they returned. My heart stopped. The foreman, a middle-aged man, stood and did not look at Cheryl Blake. He looked directly at me. On the charge of assault, he read, his voice echoing in the silence, "We the jury find the defendant, Cheryl Blake, guilty." A choked sob escaped my chest. Hot tears began to flow. On the charge of filing a false report, he continued, we the jury find the defendant, Cheryl Blake, guilty. It was over. It was finally over. I collapsed into Anya's arms, sobbing with relief. Justice had been done. A month later, Cheryl Blake was sentenced. She received no jail time, which Anya had warned me was likely for a first-time offender. But she was given 3 years of probation, 1,000 hours of community service at a center in a diverse neighborhood, and a substantial fine. Most importantly, she now had a criminal record. She could not erase what she had done. My life slowly returned to normal, but it was a new normal. I used some of the GoFundMe money to quit my early morning cleaning job. For the first time in years, I could have breakfast with Imani. Could help her with her homework at night without being delirious with exhaustion. The car was still there, gleaming on the street. But it was no longer a symbol of my struggle. It was a symbol of my victory. On a beautiful, sunny Saturday, Imani and I got in the car. Not to go to work or the grocery store. Where are we going, Mom? Imani asked, her eyes sparkling. Somewhere fun, I said, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt a true sense of lightness. We drove to the ocean, windows down, letting the salt air whip through our hair. We walked barefoot in the sand, letting the cool waves lap at our ankles. We built sandcastles and laughed until our sides hurt. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, Imani turned to me. I'm proud of you, Mom, she said. I'm proud of you, too, I said, pulling her into a tight hug. Looking out at the vast ocean, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. The road had been rough and full of pain. But it had led me here. To this moment, with my daughter, under a sky full of hope. I had faced the world's ugliness, and I had not let it break me. I had fought. And I had won.